Welcome to another episode of the Prospect List here on Tales from the Flipside. Aaron, cue the music. Say welcome to another night of the Prospect List here on Tales from the Flipside. Thank you all for being here with us tonight, and let's take it from the top. Aaron, introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Aaron. You can catch me on Instagram at YeezyYee or on Whatnot, also the same handle. I'll have to sell this Sunday. And then let's go.
Hey, all right. Hey, it's Phil with Vintage Comics and Toys. We'll be in New York Comic Con, booth 2927. We got some Raging Keys for you all to check out. So happy to be back on the con scene. Carter?
Hey everybody, it's Mercenaut. Check me out, youtube.com/Mercenaut. Just what it says right there.
And I am Chris Colbert, aka the Profiteer, aka the Dirty Flipper, aka the Speculator Don Dada, aka Mr. Make My Marvel, aka the Count of Monty Flipstone, aka Big Papa Pump and Dump. Just playing.
Man, how many variants you got, bro?
We're gonna change it up a bit. We're gonna have some fun. So, but yeah. So shout out to everyone in the chat and watching live. We appreciate you. Like Jay-Z says, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. So let's get into it. At number 10 on the list, we have Magic Order number 1. So this book is a Malar world play. It is about a family of, or 5 families of magicians protecting the world from supernatural enemies. So if everyone probably has forgotten at this point, Netflix basically came through and picked up like everything that Malar had and has what is known as a first look or first denial agreement there. So basically the way it works is that Netflix gets first go at anything from that universe, and they can always pass and allow it to go elsewhere if they so choose to. This is one of the properties that they greenlit, and it was in 2019 that it was the production was shut down, but they have picked back up again as of apparently 2020. And also there's new heat in this again, thanks to Volume 2 hitting shelves this October. So again, definitely pick up many of these Malar World books because it's only a matter of time before they see the light of day. Netflix doesn't have properties like that, like a Marvel or DC. So if they buy it, they're probably going to release it.
And Magic.
You're breaking up.
Series. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Y'all can just go ahead.
All right, yeah, we'll go ahead and move on. But real quick, the one reason why I heard about Magic Order was because of Tyler Kirkham. He was doing cover art for some of the what was it? Like some of the graphic novels and stuff like that he was just like promoting through his own art store. So I thought it was kind of neat. So I definitely need to check this out.
All right, can y'all hear me good now?
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right.
I was just gonna say Magic Order season 2 is on FOC cutoff this week. So like I guess like the next season issue 2 is on FOC cutoff this week. If y'all want to take a look at that as well, maybe some low hanging fruit there as far as speculation is concerned.
Nice. So at number 9, we have Redneck number 1. So Redneck is a Kate's work about a family of vampires living in Texas, running a very successful barbecue joint, and a uneasy truce between them and the humans that eventually turns bloody. This is so full transparency. When it comes to Kate's writes spec scripts and calls them comics. It is all about getting things optioned, getting things turned into properties. This is what he was working on roughly at the same time that he was finishing up God Country. So this is back when Case was still hungry. It's a solid read. And yeah, I'm very bullish on this book because I think it's got a lot of opportunity to be picked up by Netflix or Amazon. Again, both of those companies are very hungry right now for properties. They do not have the machine in place that Disney does with Marvel or HBO slash AT&T has with DC. So, any property that's, a good read, solid foundation, solid fan base that they can transfer over to a live action, opportunity, definitely, pay attention to and keep your eyes on. So again, I highly recommend this. It's like a $20 to $50 buy. If you're going for the one per store gold foil variant, I honestly think you could probably buy that book graded at a 9.8 for somewhere in slightly over $100. So again, if you can afford to stack these up, grab you a couple, put them in the bag. You'll probably end up pretty solid, like most people who held on to God Country.
Ooh, I know somewhere that has a ash can. I should probably go pick that up. But one thing I do want to say is that, like, when this series was being released, like, Walking Dead was, like, coming to its end of the series, and I feel like people were just looking for a fresh new take onto a zombie story. Like, zombies always sell, right?
Well, these are vampires.
Oh, they're vampires?
They're vampires. So,
okay.
So this actually was coming in roughly when, like right after I think True Blood had come to an end. So we've had a vacuum. I'm a big horror freak, so I keep track of the tendencies and waves in horror movie and like the culture. And we're due for a good vampire property at this point. We haven't had anything since. I mean, most people enjoyed True Blood. We had a couple of movies around that time that were popping and things like that. But generally speaking, we haven't had a good vampire series in a while. So,
yeah,
definitely some opportunity there.
Yeah, and then as we said on It's Drunken Chat, or Lucas has said, like, things go in cycles. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So we're due. At number 8, we have Prodigy #1 from 2018. What is currently shown on the screen right now is the Frank Quietly cover, and it is one of the rarest, and there are no incentives for this book. So again, we have another Mark Millar property that was a part of that Netflix deal that was pinned. People just kind of forgot about all those books that were included in that. And again, maybe I'm giving away some future cornbread, but Rebirth was in there also, Reborn was in there also. So there are quite a few properties that were part of that imprint that are, waiting in the wings to be turned into something that Netflix gets the ability to either do it or not do it. We all got surprised during the pandemic with The Old Guard. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and you pretty much heard little to nothing about it. And it was like 2 months from now, it's dropping. Unlike a lot of these other production companies, they're not out here in these streets like that. Like, you don't see leaks and news about Netflix. Like, you hear the initial optioning, and then you don't really hear anything about people seeing them out in the street recording and things like that. And then all of a sudden, Netflix just dropping a trailer on you, and they're like, "Oh, this is coming in 2 months." So don't get caught, with your pants down, so to speak. If you can go out there and find these books, get them. If you're of the graded sort, then go get you some graded copies. Make sure that you got them back from CDC, because the last thing you want is for an announcement to come and you could have been first to market and you're sitting there like, with your thumb up your ass. So just a little bit of cornbread. At number 7, we have Darth Vader #2, the variant from 2017.
Okay, so this is a personal favorite of mine. So this is a 1 in 25 variant. Like Chris said, this is from the Darth Vader series from 2017. This is a Mike Del Mundo cover. It's also the first cameo appearance of the Jedi warrior Kirak Infala. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that name, but I like this. You could buy it either because it's a first cameo appearance, or you can buy it strictly because of the cover. This is pop art at its finest, and even better than that, it's Star Wars pop art at its finest. You have Darth Vader, and then you have like this clean row of stormtroopers. And I really, really dig this cover. I remember the first time I ever saw this cover, and I fall in love with a lot of books, and this is one of them. This is one of those covers, and I think this is the type of cover that could possibly appeal to that Star Wars fan that might not even be into comics. You know, they just might be just a Darth Vader fan, and they just want something to, you know, maybe put up on the wall, or just to maybe put on the, like, on the nightstand or something like that. This is a cover that I think has a lot of appeal outside of comic fans.
Just one thing, Carter, real quick. You had me convinced that you knew how to pronounce the name until you said something.
Damn.
So make it till you make it, man. Just go with it.
Right?
All right,
next time.
I'll try. It's Kurek and Follow, I believe. And pretty close, I think. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right either. But yeah, this is really good spec. I was speculating that Kurek and Follow could probably be a character that shows up in the Bad Batch on that D+ animated series. Star Wars is filling a lot of gaps. This is after Anakin becomes Darth Vader, and you want to see a really badass fight with Anakin as Darth Vader, right? After the Return of the after Clone Wars, my bad. This would be a really, really cool one to really play out. So Karrak and Fala, he's basically alone. He's isolated. He's protecting a village. He's not a Jedi. He was a Jedi Master, but he's kind of steered away from that. So definitely really good spec. And I actually never really paid attention to this cover. It was a really good pick. Good nightstand spec.
It's it's around a $50 book. Raw, and maybe like a $200 9.8.
Well, I know that series a lot of people have been picking up anyways. Do you think it's because of we're getting closer and closer to the Obi-Wan and Anakin series?
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, anything's possible. Like there's no bad spec really when it comes to Star Wars for these like in-betweener types, time period storylines, because all that's fair game. I mean, I know everybody who was hardcore legacy people are really, really not happy about that, but they basically swept the table. And at this point, anything could happen because that's canon that they only in these Marvel comics have they revisited and reestablished at this point. So, but they're also cherry picking out of the Dark Horse stuff as well. So, I mean, nothing's out of the question to make an appearance in the Obi-Wan or the series that take place in the in-betweens.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched The Bad Batch, the first episode, they transplanted the Bad Batch to Kanan, the last Padawan, issue number 1, in that death scene with Kanan's Jedi Master. So they're definitely looking at these comic books. So definitely, the spec is good here. We're just at the beginning, just like what Chris said.
At number 6, we have The Punisher. Number 17, Legacy number 197 from 2014. Okay,
I'm not sure who picked this one, but reading the notes here. What's that?
Go for it.
Oh, okay, go for it. Nice.
Yeah, so not any verified speculation around this as far as MCU or anything of that nature. It's just my mindset of thinking is that, okay, we know at some point in time they're going to bring all of those Netflix characters back into formally introduce them into the MCU. So Punisher, Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones. So I'm speculating on all of them hard right now, because I feel like a lot of people like those Netflix shows when they came out, and just introducing them into the MCU proper is only going to increase their popularity. Obviously, Sam Wilson is Captain America now. So when I think of speculating on MCU, you kind of have to look past first appearances because there's only so many to go around. So I start to think about moments. And I think a Sam Wilson Captain America and a Punisher fight scene is something that would be easy to do for a Disney Plus show and something that we could easily see. So I just started kind of looking to see where these two characters cross paths. And after a little research, I found that this was their first time meeting slash, having a fight against each other. And even though they were aware of each other's presence in the MCU, but this is the first time they actually had fisticuffs. And if you think about Sam Wilson, the character that he is in the MCU versus the character that Frank Castle was in the Punisher Netflix, they're polar opposites. And it just seems like a perfect way to kind of to introduce Punisher into the MCU, to have him be, more of that anti-hero that's just going around wrecking shop. And at some point in some time, somebody got to tell this dude, look, you got to chill out, man. The story arc at this part of this Punisher series is that basically Frank Castle finds out that a lot of shady stuff that's going on has been driven by some higher up senators and things of that nature. So Frank, he goes through some nefarious methods to put that all to an end. And Sam Wilson steps in like, nah, big boy, it's not going down like that. So if you haven't read this run of the Punisher, I would definitely recommend reading it. It's a great read. But outside of that, I just thought the cover was dope. And so I submitted it to the list to see what the other people on the panel thought about it. But it's not a book that costs a lot of money. You can get a high grade copy for like $10. Which is a steal in my opinion. I've seen worse MCU related or possibly MCU related books blow up. At least this one has a good cover. If we never see Sam Wilson and Frank Castle cross paths, at least you get a dope cover out of it.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like an easier concept storyline to introduce Sam Wilson and the Punisher from Netflix into this story arc. Easier than Armor Wars, I think.
Yeah, putting him in a War Machine suit, like off the rip, like, come on, man. Not saying we can't get to that point, but like this is a lot easier. It's having him as a guy that's like, hey, man, ever since the snap, the 5 years in between that, like they can throw anybody into, well, not anybody, but any character that's not cosmic or that their presence wouldn't have to be deeply explained and you don't have to go back and try to rewrite stuff and make stuff make sense. All of those characters are in place. So people like the Punisher, who require no CGI, no crazy special effects budget, those are the type of characters that I'm speculating on, because there's a lot that you can do with these characters. And it's not like you have to go and jack up everything that you've already established to introduce them into the MCU proper.
All right, before we move on to number 5, I just want to thank the 99 people that are watching live with us right now, and then including if you're watching us on Facebook or Twitch. And if you didn't know, we do have a Twitch, so make sure to like and subscribe to both the YouTube channel and the Twitch channel.
Very, very, very nice. So at number 5, we have Miss Marvel, number 13, the 2015 series, and it's the Women in Power variant.
So this is the first appearance of Kamala Ron. Rish Shah cast as Kamala Ron in the Disney Plus series. He shared on IG Deadline post that describes him as the male lead of the show. Prices have been stagnant for 10 months. Kamala Ron is slept on. First Red Dagger has 190 graded copies. First Amulet has 154. First Kamala Ron has 70 graded in total. Approximately 32K print run for both covers. So I would assume that is split, or maybe even like one could have been a qualifier. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that. But I'm excited to see the Miss Marvel series.
Yeah, so it was something that I was referencing in other group conversations and things of that nature, is that like there's so much happening right now that you almost like there's an overabundance of things to spec on at this point, to the point where people are forgetting. I mean, we're mentioning indie books that were optioned, a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. There's stuff like deep cuts within the MCU. I mean, most people kind of forgot about like She-Hulk. People have forgotten about Ms. Marvel. It is very much so. It takes a trailer to drop, and all of a sudden people go, "Oh yeah, that comes out in like a month from now. I should probably go hunting for books." And then instantly, there's a huge uptick and swing in purchases. But if you really want to get in front of the 8 ball, if you want to be proactive, look at the slate of things that have already been announced. Go back and look at the Hollywood Reporter. Look at casting announcements. Buy the books associated with those characters. They're out there. Like, there's money to be made. You just need to put in the work.
I want to take a moment to thank Canton Cankerous L. Sorry if I butchered that. Thank you for your super chat of the $5.
I want to say it's Cantankerous L.
Okay, there we go.
We appreciate you. At number 4, we have Dragon Ball Z #1, first print from 1998 by Viz Media.
Okay, I don't know who I can give credit to this one, but this is the first appearance of Adult Goku.
Oh, there you go.
That was
He's here.
Yeah, that was,
here we go.
That was me again.
All right.
So me and Aaron kind of discovered this together while we were at Fan Expo in Dallas. We were just digging through boxes, and I was like, "Oh, this looks cool." I watched Dragon Ball growing up, like most guys my age, and honestly, I just pulled the book out because I love Dragon Ball. But once I started kind of looking deeper into the book, I realized that it got some legs behind it. So for people that do not know, before when Dragon Ball first started coming on in America on Cartoon Network, obviously that was the first time that the series was ever broadcasted in America, and they had to put the subtitles in there. But the manga, the first time it was printed in English was through these Viz Select comic books. So they came out with Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z at the same time, 1 issue a month, and I think it went like up to 9 issues for each Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. After that, they started printing monthly trade paperbacks to catch up with the manga quicker. And in addition to that, they started making like 5-packs with the first 5 issues in there, and those had several printings. So that's just like those Pokemon packs y'all see with the Pokemon books in there. It's just like that. The way that you can tell the first print from the other printings is normally those first prints are always going to have that barcode on there because they were sold in comic book stores, newsstands. So I don't think this is a newsstand variant or anything of that nature, but from what I could research on this is that all of the first prints had that barcode on there, and the same issue was basically released at newsstands and Barnes and Nobles and places like that as well. It is a manga style comic book, so you read it backwards. So the spine is actually to the right side of the book instead of the left side of the book. From what I could find on eBay and sales history, these books are pretty hard to come across, especially in high grade. And a lot of the books that I seen on eBay were pretty beat up. If you go back and look at the census, the grades range everywhere from 9.0 to 9.8, with only like 2 9.8s in the entire census, maybe like 19 books total graded. So when you think about it, what Goku, he's, in my opinion, with a younger audience, younger meaning like people in their 30s and younger, Goku is just as popular as Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. Definitely an iconic character. I mean, it's in my opinion, it's low-hanging fruit of speculation. The Dragon Ball Z movie has never ever been done right, never close to being done right. And some people might say that's a bad thing, but as long as something is never done right, there always will be somebody gambling to try to do it again and get it right. And the note that I left on this book was that the world could be over with, everything could be turned into ash and dust, and it'll be a Dragon Ball fan somewhere saying, "I wish they could just do a live action Dragon Ball right." So it's worse things out there to speculate on, man. But a hard to find book. The paper style of the book definitely makes it even harder to get it in high grade. This is something that I will probably be hunting for. Now that I have a low grade copy, I'm obsessed with finding a high grade 9/8 copy of this thing now.
Yeah, I will say that it's very, very early on in the anime comic book spec. So when they reintroduced Dragon Ball to continue the series, it was a big, big thing. Like Dragon Ball Funko Pops were going for like hundreds of bucks. It was crazy. I was selling out like crazy at cons. And when you go to Comic Cons, it's all these cosplayers that are dressed up as anime. So we've had My Hero Academia pop for comics. We've had One Punch Man jump out. Demon Slayer does not have a comic book appearance yet, but if it does, that's gonna blow up whenever it does. So and then I was watching you Ninth on Whatnot, and these U.S. studios are paying attention, and here we go. We got Kanto, right? And Kanto could be the greatest anime, like originally U.S. made anime that hits the screen. So do not discount cartoons and anime. Like, this is great spec. I didn't know about this one. Thank you for bringing this one up, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think that the biggest surprise for me was that a lot of people I showed this book to had never seen the book before. And it's people that's well tenured, in comic book collecting. And one last thing I want to say is that my best friend is a huge manga collector. And he was telling me that he was reading an article the other day that says that the top selling manga outsells the top selling comic books at a 6-to-1 ratio. So just something to think about with that. This is not only a big book in America because Dragon Ball Z is popular in America, but this is going to travel overseas as well. Because Dragon Ball has a history past with everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know we've covered on It's Drunken Chat before that exactly what you said, that manga like outsells comics. Like, as Carter was saying, it does laps and laps around comic books, and then, it's a big industry. It's nothing to like forget about. So
yeah, just wait till Akira drops. Just wait for that to drop. Yeah.
Dude, I'm still excited. Just waiting for the live action stuff.
Yeah. So that brings me into the fray. So I will say this is that so with a lot of these scenarios where you have like the Viz Media stuff bringing it to the English market, you have Marvel with the Epic imprint in the 80s bringing a lot of the manga and anime that was super popular in Japan at that time over to English audiences. Akira is another one of those examples. But that book is pretty much a ghost as far as like at this point graded copies are concerned. Like, they are out there, but like most people are not trying to part with them. I just lucked out and just got notice from CGC of a first print #1 that I submitted is coming back in 9/8. So I'm super geeked about that because it was a lob and a prayer. I found it in a local LCS, so I'm definitely super geeked to have that in my collection. Probably won't be parting with that anytime soon. But yeah, definitely, for all of us who were anime kids of the 90s and early 2000s, like, this stuff is a nostalgia play. It's a smart play any day of the week. So at number 3, we have Silver Surfer Volume 3, issue number 72.
All right. So I want to say that Jason Shaw nominated this book. And so this is an inexpensive 1992 Silver Surfer book that introduces the cyborg version of Nebula, with whom Marvel Cinematic Universe's audiences have become familiar. Rumors of either a Gamora or Nebula Disney Plus show, or a focus on the relationship between the sisters, in the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie has driven up the prices of Nebula's first appearance in Avengers 257. In the recent issue of her solo series, however, a little known Nebula key is Silver Surfer number 72, which features Nebula's first appearance in her more familiar Marvel Cinematic Universe form as a cyborg. According to the CGC census, there's only 23 graded copies, 16 are in the 9.8. The 1992 book does also offer a new standard edition.
Yeah, I say this is a very smart play. Like both Nebula and let's be real about it. Like for a lot of us who invested in that Guardians of the Galaxy team, or tried to invest in the Guardians of the Galaxy when they first announced that they were getting a movie, I think it was a swing and a miss for a lot of us, even the ones who had the lineup that ended up being the one that made it to screen. A lot of those books just did not pop like many of us were hoping. So it's nice to see that Gamora and Nebula are finally getting some love, because you have two characters who have been very, very vital to the development of what current MCU looks like. Iron Man was responsible for its birth, but the Guardians and the inner workings and interplay between Gamora and Nebula and their ties to Thanos have really shaped that relationship and how we looked at familial relationships in the MCU. And so it's really nice to see those two characters finally getting their time in the sun.
I remember about a year ago, this book was hot, and I'm surprised that we've all forgotten about this that quickly.
It's just the attitude nowadays, right? But for, I don't know, let's give it a 3-week time period of when a book is super hot, and then by that time period, something else has already hit, and then we're focusing on that. It happens to the best of us, right?
What does Mel say? It's the Janet Jackson scenario. What have you done for me lately? It really is true. You can have the announcement that something got optioned, and if you haven't sold them books within 2 weeks, you won't move it. You won't move a copy again until a casting announcement, which could come 6 months to a year later. People just, it is what is hot right here now and in my face, and I'm not thinking about it anymore until something else happens. So, it's just the nature of the hobby. It seems like at this point, the media cycles just turn over too quickly for anybody to care about anything for more than a week or two, honestly, at this point. At number 2, we have Invincible, number 19, the Comic Vault Live Attack, second print variant from 2021. All right, so this is the second print of the first appearance of Battle Beast. So Battle Beast has become a fan favorite across, Invincible watchers. People have fallen in love with this character. People who are not comic book people, as Knife said, I think it was last week, it's that people that he knows, his friends who are not comic book people at all, are Battle Beast is the truth, and it's a character that's going to have a very long run in the Invincible series, in the animated series. And this book is, for all intents and purposes, a ghost. So from the little bit of research I was able to do, it was I think it was a straight to grading release that was done by Skybound Image. It was I think a 250 copy release. I think a couple have been cracked and resubbed, because if you look at the CGC census, they are all there's 259 8s and then there's 3 9.9s. So my guess is a couple people cracked and resubbed and were able to get 9.9s out of this book.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's a high grade, it's a low print run. It's got all of the things, it's a first appearance. It's got everything going for it. That's just a buy me and, reap the benefits of having me in your collection type of book. How long that will stay remains to be seen. Anybody who's read Invincible knows that Battle Beast is a prominent part of the series for a long time. How long the series runs on, Amazon, remains to be seen. Amazon don't like to keep things around for or Amazon's better about keeping things around than Netflix is, but still, as the winds change, so maybe don't get too overly invested in this book. It's a $150 to $200 9.8. But yeah, not a bad one having the holster for when season 2 rolls around.
Yeah, this is definitely a badass cover. It reminds me of all the like Japanese style tattoo art that's seen around, and yeah, the more I look at it, it's like kind of like, oh, I need to get it. And then I know that Mel is also a big fan of Battle Beast, anyways, too. But I don't know who nominated this book. So.
Yeah, still a solid pick.
Yep.
And at number 1, we have Final Crisis: Rage of the Red Lanterns, #1 from 2008.
Okay, so this is another pick of mine. I like this book a lot. This book had shown up on my radar probably about a year ago. So it's quite a few first appearances. So we had the first appearance of Bleeze. We have the first appearance of Dex Star. First appearance of Fury 6, Hagor, Ratchet, Scalox, Zeon, Vice, and Zilius Zox. So it's quite a few different Red Lanterns, and we're hearing just a little bit about a HBO Green Lantern series. So as far as I'm concerned, anything Green Lantern is in play, and if it's cheap enough, go ahead and pick it up. Green Lantern first appearances, and this book is always missing out of back issue bins. I noticed, because you have this first print. This is a cover B. You have the second print, and you have the third print, which is probably the more rare and more expensive. But this cover B that's up on the screen right now, I think this is probably the best cover out of them all. And this one is about a $10 book online. It's to me, it's tough to find out in the wild, but online, roughly a $10 book. And I don't think you can go wrong. It's a great cover. And like I said, a ton of first appearances, namely, I would say Bleeze, and one of them in Dex Star. So, I like this book a lot. So go find it. Go buy it.
Yeah, so to come over the top on that one, when I didn't know that Merce was going to be able to hop on and I was probably going to speak to that book, one of the things I added is Green Lantern HBO Max series coming. Anything is possible. And it truly is, because if you've been paying attention to so that's one thing I will give DC. They are very transparent. Like, they are not trying to pull a Marvel where it's like, oh, we want you to be surprised when you show up to see it. Like, no, they're like, we'll tell you about every single damn character we're going to put in here, every single plot detail that might happen. Like, they're keeping a few things close to the chest. But generally speaking, they have been very transparent about what is going to happen in their HBO Max series.
Hey, Carter, did I mess up and put the wrong cover up? Because...
is it?
Yeah, because like when I was looking this up earlier today, like
no,
comics.org.
That's the right cover. That's the cover. That's the first print, cover B.
It says it's cover A, and then this is cover B, the silver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then the second printing, and then this is the second print, and then the third print.
But the Shane Davis cover, to the far left, to the far left, that's the cover.
Okay.
That middle cover sucks.
Yeah, no, really. But yeah, so what I was saying is that I mean, and you'll probably see us, I'll be definitely throwing in quite a few HBO Max related series books over these next couple months until we actually see the light of day. But there's a lot of spec opportunity, like even with especially with this Green Lantern series, like the only two of the Green Lanterns that have not been announced to be in this series at this point is Hal and John Stewart. And let's be real about it. Hal's first appearance is out the building. Like, unless you got 20 G's to drop, you're not getting one of those. But John Stewart's first appearance is still kind of an undervalued key. Like, case in point, I bought this book for $500 a couple months back. Like, I mean, you may not necessarily be able to pull that right now, but that was in the heart of COVID times when there was all these announcements coming out about Green Lantern books. This was sitting in a local LCS at $500, and nobody was checking for it. So, yeah, like, them deals are still out there to be had. Like, I would hedge my bets that Jonathan Stewart is one of the few things that they're keeping close to the chest, that he will make an appearance in that series, if not season 1, then definitely season 2. But honestly, probably it'll be a season 1 reveal of having Jonathan Stewart make an appearance, and definitely also probably Hal Jordan. So yeah, like, plenty of opportunities to make money off of DC still. Anything that's been officially announced for HBO Max, you probably got a better chance of it seeing the light of day. Sorry to everybody who invested in the New Gods and got screwed over. Hopefully they'll make it up to you in a couple years. But yeah, so definitely get out there and find those DC keys that are tied to these upcoming series, because they're out there and they're cheap. So
that's why you buy things cheap enough to where if they bottom out, no big deal.
Yeah, true story.
And let's go ahead and change gears a little bit. Nico was supposed to join us, but he's stuck in a meeting currently right now. So, but I'm glad that we have someone that works in insurance that can maybe explain a little bit more details. Ninth Wonder with us. So yeah, I mean, like, so our topic for the day is insuring collectibles. Because one thing you don't want is your collection to end up looking like this.
Yeah. So this was a topic that I threw out here because we've had two factors. It is one that I have personally, luckily, experienced and got taken care of by my insurance company for the loss of some books while they were, out there in the ether on their way to being graded and pressed and clean and things of that nature. But also a lot of our viewers, I think Mel was almost affected by it with the hurricane that hit New York. Like, people who live in places who don't expect certain types of weather patterns. I mean, I think they get a hurricane that makes it that far north once every 10 years. But a lot of people lost collection. Like, basements are very common up there. People keep collections in basements. And yeah, a lot of people lost their collections, and they are not typically covered by your homeowner's insurance unless you have them itemized. And even then, it potentially can be a fight. So the reason why I decided to throw this topic up is because I just recently went through the process of converting from one insurance company to another. And by no means am I, an insurance adjuster, or is this a recommendation of what you should do with your individual collection. But if your collection is of a value where you don't necessarily, where you can't afford to its replacement, insure it. So just a little bit of tidbit. My collection hit a point where my previous insurance company just couldn't or weren't willing to insure it anymore. I'm very fortunate that has happened. I mean, good problems to have. So I switched over, found a new insurance company, and the process basically broke down to they had a better setup for what are known as scheduled items. So in the world of collectibles, things like that, you have what are called scheduled items. They're the items that need to be listed and documented specifically on your policy. And my first insurance company, it was anything over $2,000. Most of my collection of my graded books are over $2,000. So every single time I got a new book, I was basically having to tell them about it. They were getting annoyed with that type of activity, which, it is what it is. I'm paying you money. Don't be annoyed. Take my money and do what I say do. But the new company has a cap of $25,000 for a scheduled item. So I don't have to report any of my books specifically, except for the ones that exceed $25,000 in value. Another thing about the new policy I have is that I have actually a dual policy. So I have a collector's policy and a partial dealer's policy. My collector's policy covers my entire collection. The dealer's policy is a policy of $25,000 that covers my books while in transit from me to anybody I sell to. So the way that my policy works is that when I buy, I'm instantly covered. So once it is my book officially and I have a bill of sale, whether it be eBay, PayPal, whatever, I'm covered. So all I need to do is make sure that they put signature on the package, and my insurance covers it while it's in transit. So it also saves you on your shipping costs to and from CGC also. The dealer policy is necessary because once I sell the book, it is no longer it's no longer a liability on me anymore. It's on the person who now owns the book. So the dealer policy basically covers the book while in transit. The reason why I went with a 25K coverage for that is because typically I'm not selling a book online that's more than 25K in value. So it covers me for any of those books that are in transit. Again, I don't booth up at shows like that. I'll throw some stuff in a bag and go there and hawk it to dealers like that. So again, I'm usually not taking books out the house unless they're going to somebody else to leave my position entirely. So again, these are just some things to keep in mind. But if at nothing else, highly recommend that if you have a collection, that they have to see your books. How do they verify? So again, for the scheduled items, I have to send pictures. So I basically have a spreadsheet of everything that's in my collection that's graded. And so I have pictures of all the books front and back. I have the serial numbers from the CGC because I'm a CGC dude, but you could do CGC or CBCS. They both have serial numbers associated with them that are unique identifiers for the book. And you send those in when you establish your coverage. And anytime anything changes about the books for anyone over 25K, I send in new pictures and things of that nature. Are there any storage or security requirements? Great question. Yes, for my policy, there is. My policy requires me to have a actively monitored insurance or security system. So I went the route of linking up with Xfinity. You basically own your system. It's like $270 for the basic package of hardware. It's like $20 monitoring fee a month. It basically calls out to fire, police if anybody breaks into my home or any fire is detected. I also so I stay near water, so I keep my collection on the topmost floor of my property in case of the possibility of a flood. It don't happen often here, but it is still a possibility. I could throw a stone and hit water from where I live, so I make sure that my books are all in the highest point of the house. So here, run that back real fast, Aaron. That last comment. I have over 100K in books. I mean, I had no way I could list. So again, it's only for, depending on who you have your insurance with, it's only for the individual books that are exceeding the amount for the scheduled items. So again, when I was with the one company, it was 2K, but with this new company, it's 25K. In my collection, I have about maybe 10 books that are over 25K individually. The rest of them are in the, of the graded books in the 500 to like 10 or 15K range. So they generally speaking don't care about me letting them know exactly the nuances of those books. I just am worried about the ones that are 25K and more that they need to know the details about.
Thank you again for your super chat.
Yeah, appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, what about the panel? Are you guys, invested in, insurance for your policy? Also, costs. So for full transparency, for 400K in coverage, and my dealer's policy of 25K, I am paying $1,000 a year.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. Like seriously,
Yeah.
like I could lose one book and be out that. I mean, shit, it covers me. Basically, I'm saving money just from my shipping costs, like no longer needing to have paid for shipping on the return from CDC, not having to pay for shipping to CDC, not having to pay for shipping to my presser. Like my policy covers all my books while they're in transit. So I'm basically saving $1,000 just not having to pay for that stuff right there. Because it was on a $5,000 book, it is like $100 worth of insurance with USPS for a 25K book to Canada. Insurance cost me somewhere around like $200, $300 or something like that. So yeah, like a couple transactions like that, and you are already at the cost of the policy.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've been considering anyways that I should probably do. I just didn't even know kind of like where to start. But I guess like making a list of all my big item books would probably be the best way to start.
Yeah. So Danger Room Comics made a reference to USAA ain't trying to hook me up. So funny story. My original, again, not to name names, I don't want to badmouth any insurance companies, but USAA recommended somebody that they have a partnership with, and that's who I went. So I'm ex-military for anybody who's wondering. I'm Army. So they made a recommendation of a company that they normally do business with for the purpose of insuring, collectibles, cars, artwork, comic books, things like that. And so that actually got me a discount, generally speaking, with that company because of the referral recommendation through USAA. Again, I just exceeded what they could reasonably cover. The comic book market did backflips over this last year. So they just didn't feel comfortable insuring a collection that was 100 and maybe 125K before COVID, that then turned into a 400K collection after COVID. So again, they just didn't feel comfortable in covering it in its entirety because of its volatile nature. Completely understand that. No harm, no foul. I went to somebody who's exclusively a comic book insurance company that had great reviews, and we were able to work out a deal. Once I went and got the alarm system and everything, we were able to work out a deal that just made sense for me. So
okay, before you answer H&H's question, I want to thank Danger Room Comics very much for the $20 super chat.
Yep. So
and then also, if anyone anyone in the chat has questions, like, feel free to ask, and then we'll highlight them and then try to answer them as best as possible.
Yeah, so H&H, I want to say I have a $500 deductible for the dealer's policy. So, for the smaller books, I'm probably still better off getting the individual insurance through eBay or whoever, or the USPS when I ship directly. When somebody buys it directly off me that's smaller than that. So that is something to take in consideration. That most of these are going to come with a minimum deductible of probably at I asked, there was no way to buy my way into a lower deductible. So $500 is just the minimum that I'm just going to be out if, something happens. So, which is, again, I'm okay with. I'll throw, $100, worth of insurance, or $200 or $300 worth of insurance with USPS. Again, I've had to invoke their insurance before. I've, generally speaking, never had any issues with getting the Postal Service to pay out. Even in scenarios of selling a book on eBay to somebody who was using a forwarding service, you just have to be smart about how you answer the questions and where you say the damage took place. Because the second that it leaves this shore and goes on a boat to head to Singapore, you're not covered anymore. But if you say, hey, the book got damaged in transit, I'm not saying, I don't know exactly where that happened. USPS take care of me. So,
hey, so Ninth, I know you work in insurance. What kind of experience do you have with working with insuring collectibles, or do you yourself insure your collectibles?
Yeah, so my job is pretty much I approve and deny any claim that slides across my desk. Well, my desk is digital now, but I approve and deny any claim that comes across my desk. I'm that guy, like Chris said, that's gonna call you and ask you all of those tough questions, and it's not necessarily to bait you into saying the wrong thing. Hold on one second. My job is not necessarily to bait you into saying the wrong thing or anything like that. But for most insurance policies, you have different types of coverage. Certain things are covered underneath certain policies, and those policies have certain limits. So we don't want to cover a claim under one thing, and then something bad ends up happening in the future, and you've already maxed out that coverage under something that should have been filed under something completely different. That's why anytime you make a claim, it's not just with collectibles, any insurance, it's important that you be 100% honest about what happened, because so many times I've seen people, I'm not saying that they were lying, but they claim that something happened to a certain possession of theirs, and then a few months later they have a tornado or a flood or a hurricane. And guess what? You just used up your maximum allotment of that coverage for the year. So it's one of those things where, know your coverages, know what your policy entails. Anytime you buy any type of insurance policy, it's gonna come with a policy jacket. If you get it in person, if not, they'll email it to you. Read through that policy jacket and see what is it going to require for me to make a claim on the item? Is there a deductible? Will it cover me if it's a catastrophic event like a hurricane? You have to be detailed, and a lot of these questions you want to ask up front, because let's say, for instance, you live in Florida. If it's not going to cover a hurricane, why are you getting the coverage? There's no point in getting it. Now, if you live in California, well, maybe a different scenario. Hurricane, very unlikely to happen in California. Now, a fire, with all the wildfires they have in California, different type of conversation. So it's really more about reading through, and a lot of, to be honest, most insurance companies are state regulated, so you can actually figure out, you can get a copy of their policy jacket without actually being a customer and doing the research ahead of time and just kind of figuring out, okay, what do they cover? Like, for instance, some wow you probably would never think about. If let's say it's an act of terrorism, for example, a lot of insurance companies won't cover that. So if some asshole blows up a building that your storage facility is in, your books is going down the drain, which is why, look, in the hustling game, you don't SHIT where you sleep. But in the collectibles game, I believe firmly your book should be in your home. You should not be using the storage facility, anything of that nature. And that's something else with insurance you have to look into, because certain companies will not cover your collectibles if you storing them in an off-site facility. And you sit back and think, well, why is that? Okay, let's say one of the requirements, I don't know if y'all heard Chris mention something about an alarm system. They might require that you have an alarm system. Now, the facility might have an alarm system, but if you go on vacation and that'll just to ask you, well, did you arm your alarm before you left your house on vacation? You can't answer that honestly because it was sitting in a storage facility. Now, some insurers, they will make sure that your collection is stored in your home before they even underwrite your policy. So that's another thing that plays into it. Now, for the most part, a lot of this is high level, like people on Chris level that got hundreds of $1,000s worth of books. If you have a small collection, there's plenty of websites that you can go to online that you could pay about $140, $150 a year, get you 20K in coverage. You don't have to worry about paying for that USPS insurance every time you ship a book off, because even like a $1,000, $1,500 book, insurance is going to run you about $20 a pop, to send that thing out every time. You're going to make that back quick. Now, me personally, I'm always willing and dealing books, so I can keep my coverage, kind of low, because I don't hold a lot of my books for a long time. I mainly just have the majority of my PC underneath policy. But now I'm actually getting ready to switch that around because I need higher coverage, because I've been making a little bit of money on whatnot. So I've been buying more books. So I do need to bump up my coverage a little bit. But the number one thing I just stress is make sure you know what your policy covers and what you have to do to qualify to have your claim paid out for whatever it is. For me, for example, I have rare basketball jerseys, I have comic books, I have sports cards, I have a little bit of everything. So, every company isn't always the right company for your particular collectible. So you want to look at who is going to be the best company to go with if I'm into art. Who's the best company to go with if I'm into comics? You have to do your research. Now, look, I say if you in a jam and you just came across, you just made a big purchase and you just want to get that thing insured, maybe you do want to rush and buy a policy. Here's the thing about it. You can run out by 20,000 in coverage online like that, and that's good for a year. You ain't got to worry about it. You can always look. Here's the thing: you can always buy more coverage, but if you don't have no coverage at all, you down shit's creek. So if you're ever in a tight jam where you just need something else. Last thing, sometimes it might be cheaper if you have like a really big book to buy a policy for that individual book. by itself, especially because one thing people always talk about, and this is like something that I think about. One day on Drunken Chat, we were talking about a one-on-one Steph Curry card that sold for like $5 million. And I was pretty much telling McClay and Lucas that I thought it was BS because I don't think a company would even insure a card for that amount because logistically it would just be a headache. Now you think about it. Would you take a piece of paper with a piece of cloth, glued onto it and invest $5 million into that, knowing that if anything happens to this, you are not going to get proper coverage? Because anything can happen. Where are you gonna store that at? You gonna store that in your home? People, millionaires, do you think they just sit around with $5 million in their home? You not got $5 million cash in your home. That's why you have a bank account, because the bank secures your money. So when I see sales like that, you have to think about the logistics of what it costs to insure those items. Like that original art, the Jim Lee original art that Nicolas Cage bought. Like, and I'm like, does he just sit with that above his dining room table and look at it? No.
Funny that you mentioned Nick Cage, and about having like $1 million in your home. So anybody who's an old school collector, Nick Cage got back like 20 years ago for a Action Comics #1. At the time, it was valued at $1 million. The insurance paid out to him, and they eventually 10 or 15 years later recovered that book again. He had to give that back to the insurance company because the book had gone up. Like, he wanted the book back because it had gone up in value so much since then. But Nicolas Cage absolutely keeps these shits in his home, and he has gotten got before. So if he can get touched, anybody can get touched. Insure your collectibles.
Yeah, man. Me personally, like the people that's within this community, they know, I buy and sell comics, but like, I don't be telling just average everyday people, oh yeah, I'm a big comic, but you never know who's watching, man. You don't I have a friend that works in fire and theft, and we live in Texas. So we get a lot of stuff close to the border of Mexico. Crazy stuff happens all the time. Stuff you would not even think about. Like, even with just like regular car insurance, like people find some crazy ways to mess up their own stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just paid out a huge claim on a car, and really, honestly, when I sat down and thought about it, I was like, man, that guy was full of crap, but he knew how to answer all of the questions perfectly. You could tell he sat down and thought about everything ahead of time. And I'm like, you know what? Can't hate the player, you gotta hate the game. At the end of the day, because he made sure his bases were covered before he called in, because he knew we was gonna have a lot of questions, because he knew what his car was worth. But at the end of the day, do I think the guy did anything shady? No, he just had a very expensive car and had something unfortunate happen to him, because he damn near started crying when we told him that, yeah, buddy, that car ain't coming back. That car ain't coming back. But it's just one of those things. You don't, with collectibles, I think the coverage is a little bit cheaper because, honestly, as collectors, man, we're really not trying to do nothing to our collectibles. We want to keep our stuff safe. And when it's time to sell, we want to make money on it. So it's one of those things. You can get a nice deal on coverage, but if y'all start doing foolish stuff with the coverage, they're gonna jack it up. Believe me. So don't try to get in here running no game thinking y'all getting over, because trust me, I always say this, man. It's always a day of reckoning. So do your research, itemize it. Oh, last thing. An insurance company can only cover what you can prove exists. So all your big books, catalog them bad boys. Pictures, if you got it graded at CGC underneath your own account, print that out. Everything, especially if you got big books, I would even say maybe store all of that site stuff. It may be like a safety deposit box and a secure digital file too, with pictures, your receipts. If you bought any of those off eBay, just anything you can think of, just make sure you lock it down so that you can have all of that information saved somewhere safely. so that if anything ever happens, you can prove, look, and even you might even want to go as far as like Chris was saying, being on the schedule with it, every other month, something like that, update and take up-to-date pics with a date wrote on it. You know what I'm saying? Like just thinking ahead so you can prove if anything happens that I can prove that I still had this book, you know what I'm saying, in my possession, and that you didn't sell it off or anything like that, because they're gonna have a lot of questions if you ever go to make a claim. But bad stuff, does happen. Books get lost, books get damaged. But the big thing I would check on is making sure that if you get a partial dealer account or even a full dealer account, that you make sure that you know how your stuff is going to be handled if it's damaged in shipping, because that's the more likely scenario I see happening, is a book being damaged in shipping. And just making sure that you won't have to jump through hoops in order to get your company to cover that.
Yeah. So, and one more thing I want to call it real fast is, Aaron, will you pull up Justin Shannon's comment? Like he mentioned, and Knives just spoke to it about the using a bank safety deposit boxes. Generally speaking, not a bad idea. You're just as secure as anything else that's in the bank. The one thing I will warn against, though, and this comes from firsthand experience of like I've worked in banking since I was 16 years old. The only gap I have in there it's really when I was in the military. And there are a couple of horror stories. Really what it boils down to, don't pass away without having documentation and having your family know that you have books in a safety deposit box. Because if that shit goes unclaimed, that shit will get sold. Like the bank, if they have no like chain of custody, no next of kin to get them books to somebody, the books will get sold. And there have even been horror stories of bank managers being like, nobody came to claim this after a year. I'm just gonna keep it. And like people got hemmed up on that because they got caught, because eventually the family did figure out through digging through records that the person had a safety deposit box with items in it. They weren't comic books, they were other valuables, and they went looking for them and they were nowhere to be found, and nobody had a explanation of the chain of custody for said items. But in most cases, the bank has no idea what's in that safety deposit box because they are not with you when you were putting items in there. So you have no real proof that what you claimed was in there was actually in there too. So again, make sure that, don't be taking it to the local credit union. I'm just gonna put it that way. Like, check out your more major banks. If you're gonna go that route, make sure that you have a clear defined like ledger of what's in your safety deposit box. Make sure that your family knows what's in, because all of us think that we're gonna be here forever, but shit, you can walk across the street and get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like, make sure that everybody knows where your stuff is. Make sure everybody knows where to find records about. So my girlfriend knows where she has access to. I have a live link saved in my Microsoft Drive that basically updates real time anytime I make a change to it. So my girlfriend can access it the moment that anything happens to me. So that if she's ever burdened with having to unload my collection, she knows values. She knows, and I also make recommendations of shops to go shop it around to, people I'm close with in the industry, of who's going to give her top dollar for buying out my collection. That's another thing too that's like sort of connected a little bit more. But if you really if you're planning on leaving these to your family, you're actually just leaving them with a headache that they have to figure out how to deal with on top of burying you. So like realistically, if like you really do them a favor, just sell them shits, or make sure it's very clear of how they can unload them if your untimely demise ever does come about. Don't leave them having to try and figure out values and chasing down, because we take it for granted. Like, we know how to get on GPA, we know how to do a lookup on eBay to see sold price and all this other good stuff. Don't put your family in that position. Make sure you keep good records of everything in case something does happen to you, that they can then take action accordingly.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure we all want to keep our collections neat and tight, like this person's man cave or whatever.
I did want to say one thing, something I saw in the chat. Somebody said buy a good safe, it's a better investment. No, it's not.
Yep, don't do that.
Safes are not fireproof. Safes are not waterproof. Believe them safe companies if you want. It's almost nothing on this earth that's really truly waterproof, especially if you live in Louisiana somewhere where you can have a flood and that safe can be sitting underwater for weeks. Trust me, water's gonna find a way to get through. In addition to that, make sure that if you have somebody close to you, make sure, I don't care who it is, who are the next closest person to you, your wife, your best friend, make sure them you put them on your policy with you. So if something does happen to you, like most people, you know, they lose somebody close to them, selling some comic books off is going to be the last thing on their mind, but anything can happen, you know, in between that time where they actually try to get rid of the collection and, you know, you passing away, and you want them to be able to, you know, have that same insurance that, because you paid for that policy, you want it to be able to be executed, you know, at any time if something does happen. So just make sure that you have, you know, a backup person on that policy as well. And the last point I wanted to mention is that I always talk about me seeing no difference in CBCS and CGC. And one of the points I always bring up to people that getting your comic books graded is a form of insurance on your comic books. You know what I'm saying? So if you have a book graded, it's just an extra little layer of security on that comic book. So when you think about getting your books graded, think about, okay, is this for my PC? Or is this like an investment book? Like investment books, I seriously do not care what company it is, because I'm selling that bad boy off one way or another, and I just need that thing on ice, you know, in that slab, because it's gonna give it that extra layer of, you know, of protection. And like I said, the last thing I like about grading is that it also is an easy way for you to catalog your collection without always having to do that work, you know, that work yourself. And then also look at your eBay account. Anything that you purchase on there, you have record of that. So that can also be a record of, hey, you know, this is, you know, where, you know, how I purchased this. But overall, like I said, man, anything you can do to ensure your collection. So I would say you can have a safe, you can have an insurance policy, and you can grade the majority of your key comic books, and that way you got 3 layers of protection for it if you count your home alarm system. So any layer of protection you can put between your value items and outside threats, none of it is a bad investment, especially with the prices we're getting to now with comic books. There's no way you can make a bad investment on protecting your comic books unless you got like a long box of old Valiant comics that your pawpaw gave to you, you know, 20 years ago. Then yeah, it might not be a good idea to get them insured.
Okay, 2 questions. One to Ninth and one to Phil. To Ninth, are you interested in buying this PGX book? Just joking. And then the real question being, Phil, so as a dealer, do you have dealer insurance for your collectibles? Because I know you like go through a lot of inventory pretty fast, and like, do you keep an itemized list of your big stuff and like insure it?
Yeah, I just have it lumped in with my home insurance. So I'm really fluid with my inventory. So I don't keep things too long since getting into the modern game, like since the beginning of COVID. And one thing I would like to add is the threat to your comics is getting greater and greater. There was a Comic-Con in Harrisonburg. I think that's what was in Maryland. And there was a dealer that was loading out, and he loaded all of his comic books in his vehicle, left the keys in the ignition, the whole car, and all the comics got stolen. So it's like, it's madness. And also the last C2E2 in Chicago, right? The last one that last one that happened about almost 2 years ago. There was a guy with his 2 kids, and they were going booth to booth, grabbing comics, right, with his kids, and just stuffing it in a bag and then selling it to other dealers. So I think that guy went to trial already, but I mean, I'm actually curious how that would work, because like, you know, if someone jacks your comics, sells them to another dealer. You know, I mean, like, how does that work with insurance? But
I
you
mean,
know, the
possession
threat
of stolen
is
property.
insane.
So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the threat is intense. I was just dealing with the international credit card fraud thing, and you know, now we've got, you know, safeties and things like that on our credit card system on our website. But you know, it's scary. You know, it's you know, I mean, I guess every single region is a little bit different. You know, like, hey, if you're living in Texas or in a southern state, you're gonna have a gun in the house, right? Ninth, Aaron, I'm sure I'm sure you guys are loaded. You know, but God bless America. You know,
No
but,
comment, but yeah.
So you can come here if you want to. They ain't just the southern states.
oh yeah, Midwest too with Chris. So, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, come in if you want to. I dare you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to get into that conversation, but I've been around guns like most of my life, like, but through Boy Scouts and stuff like that, and then sometimes in the streets. But that's another story for another day. So, so let's kind of wrap up with the conversation tonight. I know it's a good conversation, and I'm sure there's more questions, but I don't want to keep everyone too long. Any final thoughts slash where can we catch you next?
So yeah, I think it's a great idea to insure your collectibles. Like, there's been threats with people claiming like, oh, I didn't get it, or things just getting lost in the mail going to Canada or overseas to Europe and stuff. Also, you got to be careful with the people getting things shipped to freight forwarders, because once it goes into the freight forwarder's hands, if it's outside of eBay, you're kind of screwed. And a lot of people are doing deals on like Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And if you're not like doing, I'm not sure how it works if you do friends and family through PayPal or Venmo, if you're still covered with insurance or not.
You're pretty much
But
SOL.
you do?
So you're pretty much SOL, and well, so then you have to play the game of who the card was that backed the friends and family. I know American Express usually will just like take care of their people almost regardless, but a lot of companies will look at friends and family like it's cash, and at that point, like you're on your own. So yeah, like don't play the friends and family game. You know, it's just as much there to protect you as a seller as it is to protect the buyer. Like, unless you know somebody and you've got a solid history of, or you can have somebody proxy for you. Like, I'll do friends and family if I've got somebody local who will proxy, and like they'll take the book in hand, verify it, and say that like everything's good, and then I'll send payment at that point. But yeah, don't play the friends and family game if it's, you know, if it's a book that you can't afford to be without. Just take the 3% hit and just, you know, deal with goods and services.
Yeah. So really quickly, I'm at New York Comic Con next weekend. We'll have a 4-day show, Thursday to Sunday. We're going to do 2 streams from Whatnot live, one from the Whatnot booth on Thursday and one from my booth on Sunday. And then just one more question out to Ninth and Chris. So a lot of people like to trade collectibles like cards and comics. Is there a way to ensure like trading collectibles? Like, say if you, I've heard horror stories that you trade with someone and you get an empty box. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So as far as the trading is concerned, I have honestly, I need to probably dig in to my insurance policy about like if you're doing a trade scenario. I think you're probably still potentially covered in those scenarios, but again, make sure for your individual policy. I do some trading, but I am a part of a heavily vetted group of like big money book people who are trading. So the second, like, if somebody gets ripped off, like that person is not only dead to the group, but they're going to get plastered across every single community. But like, you got to verify, basically you are who you say you are. Like, you got to send like to the group admin, you got to send like proof of identification. Like, you got to have like a paper trail that shows that you are who you say you are and that you got something to lose. You have to do a certain number of transactions before you're even allowed to sell. So you can buy all day, but you can trade all day as you being the one shipping out the books, but you cannot initiate a book, putting it up for trade until you've been vetted by the group and you've done a certain number of transactions. So they are out there. But generally speaking, I try not to play the trade game unless I'm doing it in person myself personally.
Well, no. I was about to say something. I forgot what it was, but the next time I'm on and I remember it, I definitely. Oh no, I was gonna say in the trade scenario, you should be covered because it's just like your collection, just like something being stolen out of your collection is basically theft. You know, if somebody agrees to do a trade with you and they don't fulfill their end of the obligation, they basically stole from you. You will probably have to press charges and produce a police report in order for an insurance company to pay out on a claim for that. And every company is different, so I'm not saying this is just general standard, but laws are also different in every state as well. So a lot of those policies are going to resolve around the state laws. So just a quick example is that the same insurance company could be a nationwide insurance, Geico, Progressive, Allstate, whoever. But since different states have different laws, there could be changes in coverage. So just because I'm saying one thing and Chris is saying something, those could be unique to our states. So our states might require different things. Because you do have to keep in mind that if you ever have a disagreement with your insurance company about a claim, that a lot of that stuff does go to arbitration. So, and that pretty much goes underneath state laws as to how that will be handled. So again, that's just why I tell people to look into your policy before you execute it to make sure that it's going to favor the way that you handle your collectibles. Man, I just heard something sound like an alien or something on this outside wall of my house. But y'all can catch me, of course, here on Flipside on every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on my show Cover Pick. So before y'all watch Deal or Flipside, you can come check me out on Cover Picks and then watch Deal or Flipside. You can of course catch me on Whatnot pretty much every Sunday, and then sometimes I do a special show throughout the week. I'm planning to be at NYCC. I hope everything goes good with that so that I can be there. If not, like I said, you can always catch me on the internets, brother.
All right, and then let's see. I will probably be making an appearance on It's Drunken Chat this weekend, and then I do plan to sell some books on Whatnot on Sunday at 11:30 Eastern PM, and we're taking off on Tuesday for Comic Book Food Chain, but you can catch me on Flipside with the Comic Book Women this coming up Tuesday. So that's pretty exciting. And then Wednesday and Thursday, as usual, for the Modern Playbook stuff.
Very nice. And of course, you can catch me typically on Wednesday nights. I'm usually trying to be a regular on Deal or Flipside. Of course, you can catch me here on Thursdays doing the Prospect list. I am, of course, on Instagram at Colbert6218. I'm on eBay, Colbert's Comics. I've got a couple auctions ending this Sunday, a bunch of random little stuff, including a second appearance of Kang, 4.5 white pages. If that's something that, again, I start most of my stuff as 99-cent auctions and let the market dictate what it wants to be. I've got a bunch of stuff on its way back from CGC, like all things, modern up until like 77, 78. So be on the lookout for that stuff to get posted, including some random like Ironheart first appearances. Like it's a little bit of everything. So again, you can catch me here on the channel. Definitely support the other shows, like and subscribe. And I want to say that's it and we're out.
Catch you on the flip side.